of our closed session, we received an update from staff on the two labor contracts that are listed further in our agenda. With that, we will move on to the consent agenda. Council, for your consideration tonight is consent agenda items 6A through 6G. I will move that we approve the consent agenda, removing item 6A to the regular agenda. Any other changes? There's a second. All those in favor of consent agenda items 7, I'm sorry, I was calling it 6, muscle memory. It's 7B through 7G. All those in favor of 7B through 7G signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? And consent agenda is approved. Moving on to our regular agenda, we do have approved city bills, and there is an item that I need to remove from the list. Let me get it here. On page 16 of your packet, there is a proposed expense for check 109489, which is for a demo escrow refund. This is related to our house project, and so I would like to remove that from the city bills, and I would move that we approve all of the other expenditures on the city bills. Is there a second to that?
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signal by saying aye. Aye. Oppose? All right, and then we need a motion to approve check number 109489.
So moved.
There is a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Oppose? And I will abstain. All right, we'll move on to our first regular agenda item, which is item 8A, Resolution 11082101, ordering certification of delinquent utility charges. And Kim, I believe you're walking us through this.
Mayor Mann and members of council, attached in your package you'll have the resolution along with the total delinquent tax amount, which is just under $430,000. That amount has gone down significantly because we have received numerous payments. So of course, when we get our final list, that number should be down quite a bit. This certification of the 2021 delinquent tax accounts is mandated, so the list has been provided for you, and our recommendation is to approve that resolution, ordering their certificate of unpaid utility charges pursuant to the statutes listed for collection with payable 2022 property taxes. Does any of the council or mayor, do you have any questions in regards to that list?
Thank you, Kim. Council, any questions you may have?
I think just a curiosity question, Kim. I notice a lot of $48 amounts on here. Can you kind of help me understand that? It doesn't seem like it's a significant amount to be.
It's a stormwater fee. That's a stormwater fee.
Okay.
And historically, these lists do have a lot of the annual amounts related to the stormwater.
That is correct. It's a $12 quarterly charge, but those that only have that service, it is charged on an annual basis, and it is provided during the second quarter.
No, it makes sense. Thank you.
Any other questions for Kim? We do have a public hearing scheduled on this topic, and so I will open up the public hearing related to the certification of delinquent utility charges. Is there anybody that would like to speak on this item? And do we have anybody online?
I do not.
We'll give it just a few more seconds here. All right, not seeing anybody come forward, we'll close public hearing and bring it back to council for considering resolution. Council, the resolution is, I believe, on page 65 of your packet.
Mayor Bain, I move adoption of resolution number 11-08-21-01, a resolution ordering certification of unpaid utility charges pursuant to Minnesota Statute 444.075, Subdivision 3E, for collection with payable 2022 property taxes.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? And motion is approved.
Thank you.
We will move on to Resolution 1108-2102, which is the airport fund transfer for the tractor sale and purchase. Dan, look forward to your presentation on this.
Mayor, members of council, before you tonight is the airport, or Resolution 11-08-21-02, which is the airport fund transfer for the tractor sale and purchase. This is a little bit of process gymnastics, so please bear with me as I try to explain this as best I can. Some backstory on this: we've been discussing this for a number of years, but really started working on this sort of full gas in March. So really started putting the effort between wanting to get this tractor sale resolved this year back in March. It stalled about July, and I really want to thank Kim for her work on this. She kind of took this on as a project and got it across the finish line. So the reason why we're here tonight is it has to do with her work, so I want to thank her publicly for the work she had in getting us across the finish line. Also want to let council know that all of supporting documentation, so all of the documentation supporting the sale is enclosed in your packet. So if anybody's looking for where the documents are, they're all enclosed in your packet. Some background: this tractor was purchased back in 2013. When it was purchased, the runway at the airport was grass, so it was a grass runway. This particular piece of equipment was designed to mow the runway in the summertime and then blow the snow off it in the wintertime. It was the right equipment at the time for the condition of the runway. When the runway got paved, this is no longer the correct piece of equipment. When you're doing a pull-behind mower, you're not mowing as much acreage out there anymore, and it was a lot tougher with the lighting, et cetera, so it was no longer the right piece of equipment. So we started looking at, entertaining the option of selling this piece of equipment. And with Public Works now taking on some additional plowing and mowing duties, this piece of equipment does slot in extremely well with their current portfolio, so they expressed interest in purchasing this from MnDOT and the airport. There is a grant agreement that this was purchased under back in 2013. So we have to, when we sell the tractor, have to be respectful of that grant agreement in terms of how we disperse the funds based on the sale. So as I said, we've been working since March on the pathway to purchase this equipment with MnDOT. We have an agreement now between the city and MnDOT that allows us to purchase the equipment at an agreed upon price. Also want to let council know that the Airport Commission did meet last Wednesday and unanimously approved a motion to recommend the sale of the tractor. So this has been reviewed by Airport Commission, and they are in agreement with what's being presented here tonight. So I do actually have a PowerPoint presentation because it was easier for me to show this in PowerPoint form than to try to go through this line by line because, again, like I said, it's process gymnastics. So we have an agreed upon sale and purchase price of $45,000. That number is based on the trade-in valuation that we got from our implement dealer back in March. So the first thing we did was get a trade-in valuation, came back at $45,000. MnDOT's in agreement that they're okay with us selling the equipment at that price, and we're okay with that valuation. Based on the terms of the original grant, MnDOT's share of that purchase price is $30,000, and $15,000 gets retained locally based on the original funding structure that we used back in 2013. So we originally thought that the $15,000 would all go to the airport fund because that's where we thought all the funds came through. However, we found the original funding memo that broke down where the funds came through, and of the original funding for the tractor back in 2013, 9.81% came from the airport fund, 90.19% came from the general fund. So when we look at how we want to disperse these funds based on the sale, the city's retained $15,000. What's being presented here tonight is to transfer back the original 9.81% back to the airport fund, which totals $1,471.95. And the general fund will retain the $13,528.05, so the total of the $15,000. So here's where it gets interesting. These are the four motions that are required to sell and purchase the tractor. So first, we need a motion authorizing the sale of the 2013 John Deere 6125R tractor with a mower, hitch, and plow for $45,000. Need a motion authorizing Public Works to purchase the tractor from the City of Forest Lake Airport. A motion authorizing Resolution 11-08-21-02, which approves the transfer of funds from the capital equipment funds for the purchase of the John Deere. That transfer amount is for the 9.81% of the local share. And finally, need approval of the verified claim from MnDOT Aeronautics for $30,000. If all those motions are approved tonight, that completes the sale of the tractor, puts it in Public Works equipment queue, and fulfills our obligations to the MnDOT grant. So this basically gets us out of the airport grant business, and then we can now use the tractor on any property within the city, not just the airport. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions on the process or the sale, purchase of the tractor.
I have a process question. The motions that are on the screen right now, are those all reflected in the resolution? Where just passing the resolution do all of that, or you need those motions plus the resolution tonight?
Those motions plus the resolution. So we basically have to allow the sale, allow the purchase, and then the resolution is
Got
the
it.
fund transfer from capital equipment fund
Thank you.
to the airport fund, and the last one is for the actual check for MnDOT Aeronautics.
Mayor Bain, I make a motion to authorize the sale of the 2013 John Deere 6125R tractor with mower hitch and plow for $45,000.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose, and motion carries.
Mayor Bain, I motion authorizing Public Works purchase the John Deere 6125R tractor with mower, hitch, and plow from the City of Forest Lake Airport.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose, and motion carries.
I'll make a motion authorizing Resolution 1108-2102, motion approving the transfer of capital equipment funds for the purchase of the John Deere 6125R.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signal by saying aye. Oppose, motion carries. And I'll carry the ball across the field with number 4, approval of the motion that we approve verified claim of MnDOT Aeronautics of $30,000.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signal by saying aye. Oppose, motion carries. Dan, anything else we can do for you this
Nope.
evening?
That is it. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, it's a long time coming, so thank you for getting this taken care of in good detail. With that, we will move on to item 6C, which is Resolution 11082103, consideration of the AZMN Properties LLC, otherwise known as Piper's Preserve. And Nathan, I believe you're presenting to us.
Yes, good evening, Mayor Bain and members of the Forest Lake City Council. So this item is a minor subdivision request from the applicant and owner of the parcel, Greg Radefelt. His associate, Tony Fratellone, is here this evening in the event that the council does have any questions. This parcel, actually the site, is made up of 2 parcels. They're currently unaddressed. They're located in the southeast corner of the intersection of Scandia Trail North and Imperial Avenue. The zoning district that is for both of these sites is rural residential, and the future land use designation is the same. The council may be aware of the history of this site. It was initially the site of a grading permit to have sand extracted from the site. That was originally in 2018. It has been since renewed twice, so in 2019 and 2020. And so this site is nearing the end of its use as an extraction site for sand, and is now, the applicant is now in front of the city requesting a minor subdivision to split this site into 3 residential lots. So in a zoning review of this site, the residential lots all appear to meet the zoning standards for the rural residential zoning district. The Planning Commission reviewed this request at its meeting on October 13th and did not find that the request met any of the criteria for denial for a subdivision. City staff, including the fire chief, the city engineer, and surveyor, all had opportunities to review this request and provided some feedback that's included in the staff report. The watershed was also invited to comment, and although we haven't received anything from them at this time, the applicant has been made aware that they would need to work with the watershed on permitting. MnDOT did not have any comments on this request either. The applicants submitted a revised tree preservation plan in August of 2021. And before I go into this, I just want to make clear that the grading permit for this site has a requirement to meet tree preservation requirements that are in the city code. The applicant was required to plant 90 trees on the site to replace plantings that were lost as a result of the sand extraction. That grading permit and the minor subdivision requests are kind of separate. So I just wanted to kind of be clear about that before jumping in. But we did a review of the tree preservation plan that was submitted by the applicant and found that it didn't quite meet the city code requirements. One, because over half, 66 of the total of 90 plantings were actually not trees, they're woody shrubs. The other part of this that didn't meet the city code was just the amount of plantings that were just one species was over 50%. So those are both not to code. So, and again, the grading permit did have associated with it the obligation of the developer to plant trees on the site. So, having said that, the Planning Commission, with this minor subdivision request, unanimously recommended the request to the City Council for approval, and that is in Resolution 11-08-2103. And the Planning Commission recommended the approval subject to conditions 1 through 10, which are in your staff report. Condition 6 in the staff report, which is the same as 2.f in the resolution, has to do with the tree preservation plan, and it seems that the intent of the Planning Commission to include that was simply to remind the developer of their responsibility to meet the tree planting requirements. So I would defer to, to the city attorney on that particular criteria as to how, what the city needs in terms of enforceability for that grading permit requirement. So that's all I have formally prepared for you. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Let's perhaps take some initial questions from council if there are any, and then I will give the applicant an opportunity to address council if you would like. I know you were signed up for open forum, so Mr. Fratelloni, thank you for being here, and we'll happy to hear from you if you have some comments you'd like to add, or if council has any specific questions. So with that, let's open up any questions council may have so far.
I have one maybe. I know there's a kind of a question about the kind of the cadence of the planting of those trees and concerns about potentially planting them and then having to take them down again. Are we locked into some sort of schedule for planting them? I'm not quite sure if I'm asking the question correctly, but I mean, as long as at some point those 90 trees get planted, we're okay, right? That we're in.
Yeah, so that would be associated with the improvement agreement that was that had to do with the grading permit. I would defer to the city attorney on what the timing would be for fulfilling that requirement.
Please.
Your Honor, Councilmember Bystrom, as Nathan said, the timing requirements are a function of the improvement agreement. There is a deadline in the improvement agreement for the restoration to be completed. The substance of the requirements comes from the city code. None of that is really in front of the council tonight on an application to subdivide a piece of property. Those are really separate and distinct requirements. And as Nathan said, I would encourage council and perhaps the applicant to recognize the Planning Commission's desire to emphasize the need to comply with the code in this respect. But what is in here is basically a statement of code requirement rather than a condition that wouldn't already exist but for our resolution that's in front of you tonight.
Thank you for clarifying.
My confusion is, so in the Planning Commission recommendation, we state the woodland preservation plan for this property shall be amended. That's my source of my confusion. So if we were to adopt Planning Commission's recommendations, are we amending something related to the original agreement? It's the use of the word amendment that has me confused, and I just want to make sure that we are not, that we're conscientious of what is being amended.
Your Honor, members of council, my reading of that may not be the only reading of that, so it could be a good opportunity to wordsmith a little bit. But as I read it, the idea was the plan that they had submitted did not comply with code, and this condition was a requirement that they amend their plan to bring it into compliance with code, which is, again, not a new regulation or any change in anything they weren't otherwise required to do. But to the extent there could be more than one way to read that, we could certainly talk about another way of stating this condition to make it clear that they shall fulfill their obligations under city code with respect to the woodland preservation section of the code.
Understood. Perhaps just thinking out loud here and wordsmithing, and Pete, if you have some suggested language, happy to hear that as well. Perhaps clarification of that section really specific to the woodland preservation plan for this property. As it pertains to the minor subdivision agreement, being specific to the minor subdivision agreement. Is that call out appropriate, or does that kind of take care of any ambiguity?
Your Honor, members of council, I could see two pathways forward for language, option A and option B, that would eliminate the concern. One would be to delete F from the conditions because those obligations already exist independently of this resolution. And if it's important to council, as it was to Planning Commission, to emphasize that the work is not done and needs to be done according to code, you could revise F to say applicant shall comply with the regulations set forth in the woodland preservation regulations of the city code, and nothing more than that.
Reserve, let me have to circle back on that, but happy to hear from Mr. Fredoloni if you have any questions or comments, things you want council to consider.
Thank you, Mayor and council. I'm here representing the owner, Greg Gradefelt, on this property, and what we're looking for is not to change. We want to make sure that we do put the trees back from what we are. If you physically go out and look at the site, the way that this layout of the land is, and maybe we could show that other plan that we have, which is the roadway. I got a couple of proposals that I'd like to just offer up, but I'd like some feedback from the council. We want to give you guys what you want, but our plan was on the sloping it'd be on the far north end, right about in the middle of the property, as well as the south end. There's a slope there that's very steep. And that's where a lot of those tree placements are. Actually, Nathan, if you could put the one with the trees on it. That's got the grading in it. There you go. So where all the green is where those trees are, and they're built right into the slope. And the slope is probably a 1.5 to 1, or possibly it could be up to a 2 to 1. I don't remember exactly what it is. But to try and get a tree to grow on there is going to be very difficult because it's a steep slope. The reason why we picked those arborvitae's, I'm saying that word wrong, but those plants grow about 10 feet. They are a shrub, not a tree, but they grow about 10 feet. They're flowering, they give good color. So we're trying to mix that up to give a better view when you come in there. The one reason why we haven't planted any trees, there's a couple reasons, but number one is because we wanted to get you guys what you want. Number two is we've had to change the subdivision from our original intent in 2018 was to put 6 lots back here. And we had to move it down to make it 3 lots. In order to get on the back side of that, if you see those triangle pieces on the back side, those are all, we're required to put in the septic systems. So we can't go into those areas to put trees right now. We have a potential interest in the property and buying the 2 southern lots together, and he's probably gonna put a house towards the middle of that property, if that happens. We can't really put trees out in that area because we don't know where the driveways are gonna be, nor do we know where the houses are gonna sit exactly right now on our proposed plan. We're trying to get this to be a sellable, marketable product. And with that, what we're asking for is, we'll give you trees. We just want some feedback from you on what you want. And if we could, replace some of those trees with those arborvitae's, just to get some more color into them, some more view, and to make something work on the slope. The last thing we wanna do is plant trees up on a hill that they're gonna die. It's gonna be hard to keep those living up on that slope. They're gonna be hard to maintain and hard to keep living. Those are a more shrubbery tree. They're actually pretty nice looking tree, shrub. And, but we're looking at possibly some opportunities that we would have would be to replace with some spruce trees or something on the entryway coming in, or to look at that roadway that's in there, because that's gonna be another part of this that we're looking to get done. We wanna finish up to make sure that that road will get approved, or that private driveway that comes in around that tree line there and comes around to the end. Once that's approved, then we can put gravel on that road and make the watershed happy. Right now, I can't get out of that permit. We've seeded this thing 3 months ago. It's been graded, it's done. I got all the growth, except there's this 2-foot sand layer of just pure sand underneath the roadway that we built for a road right away. And it's not growing grass. Well, I don't wanna cover it with topsoil if we're gonna put gravel on top of it. So that's why that hasn't been done yet. We're waiting for this approval to move forward so we can put these on the market.
So thank you for that. What I'm hearing is perhaps a request to change the requirements for the tree land, I'm gonna get the tree land preservation. But this sounds like it's a request that's impacting not so much the minor subdivision, but the underlying improvement agreement that is the first round of agreements related to this property. Is that what you're hearing as well?
Your Honor, members of council, always helpful to have a dialogue with the citizens about whatever it is they want to speak to you about. There are really 2 separate tracks here. We have the minor subdivision in front of you tonight. What I heard were 2 requests that would involve an amendment to an existing agreement with the city and a variance from the city code, neither of which is before the council tonight, and I'm not sure staff has or hasn't engaged with the applicants on either one of those yet in order to give council any informed advice on the subject.
And I appreciate you're before us looking for some feedback, but it's really challenging for us to give feedback without some guidance from staff on, is what you're requesting, does it align with our city code, or is there a variance path that would have to be considered? So it's tough for us to give you that feedback kind of on the fly this evening. But my foundational concern is it does seem like this is, while this particular item doesn't need to be part of the subdivision amendment or the subdivision agreement, it does seem that it's important to both the property owner, development team, and also it's important to the planning commission. So while it doesn't need to be part of the minor subdivision, I'm a little uncomfortable moving ahead with that, with this kind of foundational unknown. Just thinking out loud here, my preference would be to table this tonight, give staff an opportunity to have this discussion, decide a path forward, because I think there is some foundational questions that need to be answered and addressed before we move forward with a minor subdivision.
Is there also the option to pull item 6? Approve the resolution or adopt the resolution?
Your Honor, members of council, First, with respect to tabling, we need to hear from Nathan about when the application was complete and where we are at on the 60-day rule. And that may or may not be an option. Maybe you could look that up while we're
Yeah,
talking.
yeah, just to catch up on the 60-day deadline would be November 14th, 2021. We do have the ability to request a 60-day extension.
So tabling it is legitimately an option. We don't need to request it. We can do that.
Go ahead.
I'd just like to ask, we can work on the tree thing, that's separate than letting us be able to put this on the market. We really want to get this on the market, and in order to do that, you know, we'll work with the city, do whatever we have. We know we have a responsibility. We have an $80,000 bond that's out there through next June that we can work with to put trees in, do different things like that. I really want to get this approved today so we can move forward with the lot lines, getting this road gravelled and, you know, getting these houses placed. We're probably gonna have to wait until spring anyway to do any plantings because of the time of the year, number one, and number two, if they do, we gotta know where to put them. And in order to do that, we really need to get these lots on the market and determine where people are, and we could even make it a deal when they come with the building plans or things like that, and each lot has gotta put so many trees in it, or something like that. We can work that out, but I'd like to get this approved tonight if I can.
Your Honor, if I may, and to answer the question that Council Member Byström asked, yes, it would be an option to approve this, deleting what was item 6 in the report and item 2F in the resolution regarding trees. So we basically sever these two things that are kind of getting jumbled together in ways that may be less than helpful at this point in the conversation.
However, in doing so, we aren't amending anything related to the existing agreement. The existing agreement that does still have these requirements in place still holds.
Absolutely right.
And I guess if we were to remove that requirement tonight and move ahead, I guess I would just be looking for acknowledgement from you that you understand that is, we haven't changed anything with that underlying agreement, and those foundational questions that you brought up, we still need to work through mutually. Very good. Council, other questions? To me, this is kind of the highlight issue on this particular property. And if there is an avenue for those concerns to be taken care of elsewhere in our existing agreement, and it sounds like there is, I'm open to removing those items.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
And just to point out, if we may, we do have a letter of credit outstanding on this project, and if we are unsatisfied at some point with progress or having this completed, we have the option of pulling that and applying those funds to tree purchases and planting.
And the letter of credit is related to the grading permit,
So the grading
existing
permit,
project,
not the subdivision, yeah. So we have a letter of credit out there that we could use that's enforceable, and I think it was June was the date.
It's actually
renewal.
January 22nd.
It's actually January, but it also automatically renews.
So it automatically renews in January. So if that stays in, if it doesn't for some reason automatically renew, we'll need to cash that in pretty quickly. But we do have a vehicle to make sure that this happens if we have to.
I just better ask, just so I'm satisfied. So obviously we got one PID number right now, right? With the subdivision being approved, you'll have 3. Does that change anything, how the letter of credit could be applied to the property?
Your Honor, members of
Excellent
council,
question. Thank you.
Ryan, the improvement agreement that requires these tree plantings secured by that letter of credit is recorded against all of this property, and it will continue to be recorded against all of it when it's approved for subdivision.
Thanks.
Great question, Ryan, thank you. Just scrolling to the resolution. So it looks like if council were to consider an amendment to the resolution in packet, we would look to strike on page 111, we would look to strike line 6, which references the tree line preservation plan. We would strike that line in its entirety.
No, Your Honor, if I may, on page 111, that's reciting the findings of the Planning Commission.
Oh, it is.
It would be on the
And
next page.
we will not edit their comments, correct. Thank you. So it would just be taking out item 2F.
Correct,
Is that the only, on page 112?
correct.
So with that, I would motion that council approves Resolution 11082103, which is a resolution approving a minor subdivision for PID 06.0321.21.33.0004, with a modification to the resolution in packet to strike in its entirety the section 2F, which states the woodland preservation plan for this property shall be amended to include a species of no more than 50% of any one species of replacement tree and shall include only tree species as defined by city code. That 2F section would be removed entirely, would be my motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I guess just for clarity and just for, purposes of trying to thread the needle and moving this forward, I am happy to support the motion tonight, but also just want to draw, the applicant's attention to the concerns of the Planning Commission. And we do have a need to get that resolved related to the foundational project. Planning Commission has been fairly adamant in, what they would like to see with that property. You've made some good points, and I would encourage that conversation with staff to continue so we can find a workable solution. And I just want to send a message to Planning Commission that, we always appreciate their feedback and their concerns on this property related to woodland preservation are important, and I think we've just got a different avenue to address those concerns than specifically as part of the minor subdivision, so. Any other comments? With that, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose, and motion carried. Thank you for being here this evening. All right, it is minor subdivision night. Our next item is item 8D, which is resolution 11082104, which is consideration of a minor subdivision at 880 18th Street Southeast. And Nathan, you'll be walking us through this as well.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Bain and members of the council. Karen, do you mind sharing this? Thank you. So this is a minor subdivision request, as you said, for property in the city. This is the parcel located at 880 18th Street Southeast. The applicants for this minor subdivision are also the property owners here. It's Michael Kipka and Lori Scher. This parcel is zoned single family. It is also within the Shoreland Overlay District. It's within the low to medium density residential future land use area. The applicants are simply requesting to subdivide or split their large, relatively speaking, residential parcel into two. You see on the screen here one large parcel. They would simply split parcel B, which is roughly T-shaped. It has a driveway from 9th Avenue Southeast, runs all the way to the north. They'd be splitting parcel B with parcel A. Parcel B contains the residents' existing home and garage along with their access to 9th Avenue. The proposed parcel A, does appear to meet the zoning standards for this district, including minimum lot area. The applicants will have to continue to meet the shoreline overlay impervious surface maximum of 25% for both parcel B and parcel A when parcel A is developed. The city engineer, Public Works, Fire Chief were all able to comment, and their feedback is provided in your staff report. Watershed was also sent this request for comment, and we did not receive anything from them. The Planning Commission in their review did not find any parts of this application to meet the criteria for denial for a minor subdivision. So the Planning Commission Ultimately, at its meeting, this item was tabled on the 13th of October, but brought back and approved at its regular meeting on the 27th, or recommended for approval to the City Council, subject to the conditions that are included in the staff report. That's all I really have on this one. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Nathan. I know we've got the applicant here this evening as well. We'll have questions of council first, and we'll give you an opportunity to speak if you'd like. Council, any questions for Nathan or any questions of staff in general on this particular application? Not seeing any. Invite the applicant to address council if you'd like, if you have anything you'd like to add. Do we have any questions for the applicant tonight? Not seeing any. All right. Council, happy to consider a motion if you are ready for the resolution. It is on page 130 of your packet, or certainly if there's any questions.
Mayor Bain, I move adoption of Resolution 11-08-21-04, a resolution approving minor subdivision for PID 09.032.21.44.0096.
I'll
with the
second.
conditions as outlined.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this? Hearing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose, and motion is approved. Thank you all for being here this evening. Good luck on your projects. Our next item tonight is the 2022-2024 ASME agreement. Patrick.
Yes, Mayor and City Council, before you tonight is a tentative agreement between the American Federation of State and County Municipal Employees and the City of Forest Lake. The contract is agreed to for a 3-year period from 2022 to 2024. There are minor adjustments in language. The largest adjustment this time is the wages agreed to. The wages for 2022 consist of a 2% increase on January 1st and a 1% increase on July 1st of 2022. 2023 is also a 2% increase on January 1st and a 1% increase in July of 2023. And finally, 2024 is a 2% increase January 1st and a 1% increase on July 1st. There are no major modifications in language. There are no changes in holiday schedules or days off. There's only a minor amount of changes in what the employer has agreed to contribute to their health insurance, and basically an increase anywhere between $25 and $50 per month and over each of the 3 years. With that, unless there's questions, I ask the council to give their approval to this contract and thank AFSCME for their bargaining and their sincerity when they came to the table.
Patrick. Council, any questions you may have for Patrick?
I think we've been addressing this for a while now, and I move approval of the labor agreement between the City of Forest Lake and American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, Council 5, Local 517.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I'll just echo Patrick's thanks to the ASME group on just great negotiations, and it's great to see another 3-year agreement in place. With that, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? And motion carries. Next, Patrick, is item F, the 2022-2024 49ers labor agreement.
Mayor and City Council, before you is a 3-year agreement between the City of Forest Lake and the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 49. This union represents our public works force. Similar to the AFSCME agreement, it is a 3-year contract agreement with minor changes in language that mostly affect wages and health insurance benefits. The wage increase is exactly as I stated for AFSCME. It's a 2%, 1% January and July on 22, 2%, 1% on January and July of 23, and 2%, 1% on January and July of 2024. Again, small adjustments to the contribution for health insurance. Also a small adjustment on some call-out pay, which is also very clarification and minor discussion between us and the union. But all in all, the contract is very similar to what you agreed to 3 years ago. Again, I appreciate the sincere bargaining on behalf of the 49ers union. And we now have, again, labor peace for another 3 years in this group as well, which is always good for not only assigning work, but also for budget purposes that we know what's coming and we can adjust so forth as that goes on. So I ask the council approval unless there's questions.
Thank you, Patrick. Council, any questions for Patrick?
Mayor Bain, I make a motion to approve the labor agreement between the City of Forest Lake and the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local Number 49.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I'll just extend my thanks out and appreciation also to the 49ers for another great round of negotiation. So happy to be at this point. Happy to support the contract tonight. With that, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? And motion is passed. That ends tonight's action agenda this evening. We are going to move into a period of discussion, a workshop session related to the 2022 budget. Anything that's discussed in this section is in the workshop format only. Anything that requires formal action will come back at a future council meeting for official action. And so with that, we'd move into our workshop session on the budget. And Patrick.
Yes, one more time with a workshop on the budget. We've successfully done that most of the meetings since August and making adjustments as we move forward. I think we've made some progress on a lot of different areas. What I'd like to cover tonight is in relation to what Ellers presented at the last meeting. They presented the possibility of the city bonding for $10 million next year. I didn't see any objections, and I thought we pretty much had approval, or at least the approval to move forward on that. That bonding issue reflects, in general, $8 million for streets and $2 million for capital equipment. What I'd like to do is cover the capital equipment tonight. One of the concepts that Ellers mentioned in their presentation was a levy swap between the capital equipment fund and parks. Being that we believe it's a good idea to do equipment certificates for our larger pieces of equipment, which means fire trucks, which are $700,000 a piece, plow trucks, which are about $250,000 a piece, and so forth. We have come up with a package of around $2 million that we will come to the council next year with a bond request for $10 million and include that $2 million. But to address the swap, before you, I've included a spreadsheet that shows a little bit of different colors. And what we're suggesting is that we look at financing equipment, large pieces of equipment with certificates instead of trying to pay for them for cash. And the reason is fire trucks and plow trucks last 20 years. And I'm not sure it's a great idea to put pressure on a capital equipment fund and try to pay for those in cash when they last 20 years. Instead, the proposal will be to bond for those and pay them off in 9 years, which makes a lot of sense and keeps the fund balance and our ability to fund the rest of our capital equipment needs in place. If we do so, we have an opportunity to start to figure out a way to fund parks. It's been a long time, I think, since there's been any major capital resources for parks and trails. And what's before you puts together a proposal that will help fund parks and trails. If you recall, this year we traditionally ask for a levy amount in the capital equipment. We asked this year for $900,000. And we then asked for a parks and trails levy of $100,000. We know that particularly we have Belts Park, the master plan that's been sitting out there for about 3 years with no way to fund it basically except park improvement, park dedication funds, which is not enough money to support that. So if you look at the capital equipment fund, you'll see in years 2022, 25, and 28, we are proposing that we bond for those large pieces of equipment every 3 years. And if you turn to the second page, it shows that this year, for 2022, for example, we will bond for 2 engine replacements, a 1-ton truck, and a plow truck. In 2025, we would do 2 plow trucks, a tractor, backhoe, 4x4 tractors, and a loader. And then in the last year, 28, we would put in 3 plow trucks. Now, again, those may change as circumstances change, but it's pretty much on base of what we're looking to do. What you also should look at is the top line where it says revenues for the capital equipment fund. So instead of the $900,000 that we proposed originally in August of this year, we are changing that to $450,000. Again, in 25 and 28, we are also saying that we only need tax dollars of $450,000. If you look at the bottom of the next page, of the last page, you'll see that after the amount of equipment certificate, for example, in 2022 of $1.825 million, we now can redirect some of that levy that we proposed, basically $400,000 to fund parks and trails. And then we do that each year. Each year we're going to do certificates. So over the 3-year term, not 3 years, but the 3 different equipment certificates purchased, we're basically going to $1.2 million for parks and trails, which is something that we have not done in a long time. So it's not the most optimum way of funding parks, but it's a good way to do it, and at the same time meeting our capital equipment replacement needs. Now, I also included a levy sheet that indicates what we did, what we proposed. The last time we met, we gave you a new levy of $12.3 million. If we were to make this change, the general fund basically stays the same. Capital improvement, the paving is at $200,000 again. But there you see the capital equipment going down to $450,000. Debt service stays the same, economic development. And that's where you see $450,000 for parks. So that's basically the $400,000 that we're gaining from the swap plus the $50,000 that we had from the 2021 levy. If you project that out to just to show you what would happen in 23 and 24, the Parks and Trails levy goes back to $50,000 each year. The capital equipment levy goes to $850,000 each year. And then again in 2025, you see a decrease in the capital equipment of $450,000 and an increase to $450,000 in Parks and Trails. Again, I think this is a sound approach to funding our large pieces of equipment. Again, 20-year pieces of equipment can be amortized longer than 9 years, but I think 9 years, we thought 9 years worked well with some of the debt schedules that we've been looking at. I mean, we could actually really go 20 years, but that really isn't a great idea. But then also it's finding a way to start to fund parks in at least some way. It's not a long-term solution. It's a good fix for right now. It gives you $1.2 million through now through 2028. But I still would caution the council, we need to work on a long-term plan, just like streets, to fund parks and those improvements. Again, we're seeing a lot of development coming towards us, and there'll be park dedication fees. So some of that may be higher than in the past years, but still that doesn't fix the long-term issue. So, but this does give parks some money, and we can start to allocate that and try to figure out how we're the best way to spend that. So I just thought it'd be a good idea to go over that. Since we had at least a kind of a unofficial agreement that we're going to bond next year for streets and equipment, that we make this swap now. If you're uncomfortable doing it as part of the 2022 budget, we can come back in the spring and do a budget amendment that changes the levy, but this is just, we will present it this way unless there's an objection. Questions?
No question, just a comment. I realize this isn't the optimal way and it's short term, but I just think it's a That's a good way to start funding our parks and trails, especially since that's what we heard in our strategic plan, and that we haven't had a way to do that, but also knowing we'll work on a long-term plan. So I'm comfortable.
I have just a question. It'd be helpful, not tonight, obviously, but sometime in the near future, to see just some projections of that park capital fund based on not just this infusion, but also what's anticipated from park dedication. I know that's always hard to predict because it depends on projects happening, but now that we've got a fair amount of volume, I could just use a refresher on where we sit with that fund, and then if we were to do a look forward.
Yeah, we can do a projection on the park dedication fund to the end of the year, and then say, okay, if this X number of homes, which we believe are in the pipeline, happen, that's what will be added to the park dedication fund, and give you kind of an idea when that may come in. So, yeah, well, that's not difficult. We can do that.
But I asked for that more as just background information, but I think the feedback we've heard and just what we've seen from the economics is that funding mechanism, while valuable and helpful, isn't sufficient to get us there. And so because of that, we need to find another source of revenue. And so I like this plan and would be happy, even just in the 2022 year, to support making this adjustment in the 2022 budget. If things were to, park dedication were to all of a sudden, lots of improvement happens, we wouldn't need to potentially do it in the future. We could always pull back. But I think as just showing, like, how does our budget and long-term capital improvements align with the strategic plan, we need to do something beyond what we've done so far.
Yeah, and just to point out, the park dedication fund, we have to be sure that that should be used for new development, new parkland. That's really how that's structured. It's not structured to do ongoing maintenance at our parks or things like that. So we want to be careful in spending that for new park development or new parkland purchases and things like that. This 400,000 method doesn't have that encumbrance, so we can use it for other, if we have major, one of our existing parks has a major need, that we can use that instead and not get ourselves into worrying about how park dedication funds should be used.
Ryan, you look like maybe you had a comment.
Well, Mayor, City Council, I was going to say exactly what Pat just said, that these areas that we're talking about, they're going to create these
Yes.
big collection of park dedication are going to be easily invested into these new neighborhoods that we're creating.
Right.
And there's been a lot of coordination on how these are going to fit with this plat, that plat too, and kind of puzzle this stuff together. That's going to create this great opportunity in this new neighborhood. Or you can use this like on a Bells Park really easily, or an existing park, and so Pat just beat me to it.
Well, having sat through numerous Park Trails and Lakes Commission meetings and hearing the challenges they have, hearing the passion that they have to try to make the parks the best they can be in this community, but the limitations that they have financially, the opportunity to give them a little bit of a jump start on some of this, to really start ticking off that list, the projects that they would, like to get taken care of. I fully support heading this direction.
And also just, I'll ask the question in case somebody's listening and wondering, the plan would be that these would be dedicated towards infrastructure dollars rather than program dollars, or is there some consideration?
These are definitely not programming dollars. Programming should be a general fund expense. These are capital dollars that need to be put towards either park renovation, new parks improvements, or anything. For example, if you have a park that the baseball field is bad and needs to be redone or something, that's where this should not be a programming funding at all. It won't be if you approve it, we will put it in the capital fund. It will not be a programming fund.
Programming is also important, but I just want clarity on
Absolutely.
where the dollars are going, so thank you.
Absolutely.
And I know the Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission's been working really hard on a prioritization too of parks and park improvements, and so I think this will be well received by them as well.
Fabulous. Any other feedback from Patrick on kind of the update specific to 2022? Is there agreement that those dollars should be reallocated when that comes back to us in December?
I'm fine with that.
Heads nod, sounds like, yes, we do want to see that change. Okay.
Yeah, and just for clarification, if you adopt it the way this is structured, our tax increase or the infamous percentage increase of the levy goes to 7.3%. So that's a decrease from, I think it was 9.54% that we started with August. And combination of us doing some rearranging on the expense side, but also some other revenues that came in later from the state has allowed us to significantly reduce what we originally passed in September.
Yeah, because I think we were at 8.18 the last revision.
Yep, I think
Yeah.
you're correct. And so this even further adjusts that, so.
In the right direction.
The right direction.
Direction.
Yeah, that's
Correct. Anything else on top of mind related to budget while we're still on this topic? All right, Patrick, you have everything you need from us?
I do. We will move forward with this plan. We'll bring it forward to you in December and move forward with bonding sometime next spring, I would guess.
Thank you. With that, let's move on to staff updates. We will start here at the beginning of the dais. Actually, that means Pete, you're up first.
Your Honor, no update, thank you.
Anything for Pete tonight? All right, Karen,
Thank you, I have no updates.
Dan?
Mayor, members of council, I have one update tonight. I attended the Min-Car Expo, I think it was 2 weeks ago. City of Forest Lake is well received by the market. There was a lot of positivity towards what we have going on out here. A number of brokers and developers commented that Forest Lake is becoming a hot market, so it was good to hear some positive feedback from the market on what we have to offer. Also, just want to let council know that it seems like we've been doing a lot of planning in terms of downtown planning, watershed planning, sewer shed infrastructure planning. All of those plans have been extremely well received when I'm having conversations with developers. They're very impressed that we have these plans on the shelf ready to go, that we have a long-range vision for downtown. So all of that groundwork, it's been very well received by the market, and I feel we're in a very good position right now for a lot of growth to happen here in the near future. And that's what I have.
Perfect. Thank you, Dan. Nathan?
No updates other than acknowledging that it appears that there's a lot of interest in Forest Lake, so.
Fabulous. And thank you. I know you've had some late planning commission meetings lately, so appreciate all of the great work.
Yeah, thank you.
Patrick?
Just one item. The council will remember that some time back you approved the city's application to the House Capital Improvement Committee for $5 million on a regional stormwater program. We have been informed on the 18th of November, we are to meet with that committee on their tour. They do a tour of different places. Meeting in Scandia, we get about 5 to 10 minutes to present our project. It's a good sign that we are presenting a project. From there, they will then try to figure out sometime probably early next year if we're going to be included or not. But we'll meet with them on the 18th and try to sell them on the need for regional stormwater. We asked for $5 million, so I think we have a good chance because it's a regional solution on stormwater. So just to let you know that's happening, and we're encouraged by them letting us talk to them. So
Our 5 minutes Shark Tank pitch, right?
our 5 minutes Shark Tank, if not less, depending on how fast they have to get out. So Scandia will also be presenting a project they have, and I just do not know if there's other communities that will be invited to do that as well. But we have a time scheduled between 9 and 9:30 somewhere. So we'll be there and give them our best shot. So.
Dave?
No updates this evening.
Brian?
Mayor, City Council, just a couple of updates. Last week, we had the pre-construction meeting for the Timber Ridge Apartments Phase 2. So they started grading today, those apartment buildings right off Everton Avenue. Our last public engagement meeting for North Shore Circle Street Utility Project is the last Monday of November 29th here at City Hall, 5:30 to 7 p.m. So we met with them twice, but then had a lot of private one-on-one stuff in the field too. But our last public engagement meeting for North Shore Circle will be Monday, November 29th, 5:30 PM to 7 PM. Last meeting that we had, about 23 people showed up. So I'll just encourage you guys to attend if you want to be involved with that project and just kind of see what's been developed and from there. So that's all I have.
Did you say Monday, the 29th, 5:30? Is
Correct.
that right? And that's here?
Up in the community room.
Thank you, Ryan. Chief Peterson.
Yeah, Mayor and City Council members, I have a couple of updates for you this evening. First off, unfortunately in Minnesota, the number of year-to-date traffic fatalities are the highest they've been in over 5 years. Through October 31st, there were 411 traffic-related deaths on Minnesota highways and roadways. Speed still continues to be the largest contributing factor in fatal traffic crashes. The number of year-to-date pedestrian fatalities, 48, are the highest they have been since 2016. For Forest Lake residents, I urge you to stay vigilant in your driving, stay off your phones when you're driving, and slow down. The second item I have for you this evening is another reminder to our residents, businesses, and visitors to Forest Lake that the winter no parking on city streets is now in effect from November 1st until April 15th. The ordinance specifically states no vehicle shall be left parked for more than 30 minutes on any street within the city between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. For more details on this ordinance, I would advise people to review Forest Lake City Ordinance 72.02 pertaining to parking and snow removal. Other than those two items, I have nothing further unless you have questions for me.
Anything for Chief? Thank you, Chief. Chief Newman.
Mayor and members of the council, I only have one update today. Today was Aaron Reed's last day with the city of Forest Lake. He is southbound to Florida. Aaron was a fire tech for the city for 3 years and a paid-on-call firefighter for 15 years. He's done a great job, and we're going to miss him. That's all I have for updates.
Thank you to Aaron, and good luck to him and his family. Enjoy Florida.
He's heading the right direction.
Yeah, we'll miss him more than he'll miss us. All right. Sandy.
I have nothing for tonight.
All right, and go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Bain, and especially to you. Thank you for the comments in regards to the utility billing. It was nice to hear some positive coming back from it. So we did take into consideration, we actually started on some of your comments in regards to, and now I have to give Dan the big thanks, is that even before your email, him and I have been working on getting the information out there online and getting some type of notification out to users on some of our changes and to get a little bit more user-friendly out there also. We did take your advice on some of the utility billing, which will occur next utility billing in January. So again, it's appreciated. We've had numerous phone calls, a lot of people coming up and making some suggestions and comments, and they were well received, and I think they just want to be heard, and so I think that we're on a good path.
Fabulous, and so just some transparency, I provided some feedback, so got my utility bill, like most of you probably also got your utility bill, and if you haven't been able to go out online to check out the online options, I would encourage you to do so. They're great. I was multitasking on another call, and in a matter of minutes, I had my online account set up. I had my credit card attached. Our old service, you were never able to store a credit card out there. I was able to enroll in paperless statements, which we were never able to do in the past, and also able to set up recurring payments automatic so that it's just automatically taken care of. That all happened in a matter of 3 minutes. It was very fast, very easy, very intuitive. And my only feedback items were just around promotion of how to pay online and just some recommendations on it's a great experience, we should be promoting it. So if you haven't checked it out, I would encourage you to do so, and Kim and team, job well done. Nicely.
And also thank you to Dave. Dave has helped a lot with some manual process to help on customers figuring out why their bill maybe is too high or if they have a leak. He's given me some good advice that I can pass on, so much appreciated also to him.
I know this transition is challenging and it's been a long road, but I think the end result has been a great product. So kudos to the team for getting it done. All right, let's go back to council updates. Councilmember Munson.
Yeah, I attended the Planning Commission, and Chair Gerard began the discussion with the group. It sounds like that's the group that's going to lead with some recommendations for the MXR1 discussion as a follow-up to the council workshop that we had, the joint workshop. And then I'll just echo Ryan and Nathan and Dan. The Planning Commission agendas are full. They're busy, and I think they're going to remain full. So just encourage you to watch them or attend. I attend them, and I'm learning lots, so very busy. And Nathan's doing a great job. They keep him on his toes.
Yes.
That's it.
Perfect, thanks. Councilmember Byström.
No updates for me, but I want to echo Councilmember Munson's comments about Nathan. We've heard great things, so
Thank you.
thank you.
And Councilmember Valento.
No updates from me tonight.
All right, I just have a quick update from the EDA. EDA reviewed through the agreement that we have, the annual agreement that we have with the Forest Lake Chamber, had some discussion around terms for renewal. There is appetite to renew that contract. We're just down into the weeds on what that might look like. And then also we had a discussion on the 2022 budget. Overall general consensus that the budget as proposed has appetite. It's kind of meets what the EDA is looking for. And just had a good just general update today at our EDA meeting. That is the end of my update and the end of our agenda. There not being anything further in front of council, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? And we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.